What is leadership? Are you a leader? Yes? No? Let's find out. Welcome to the Wisdom Inspired Talks podcast. I am Yomi Akinpelu, your wisdom coach, speaker, teacher, and author of several books. Today, I'm going to be speaking about leadership. But before we start, if you haven't subscribed already, please do so right now. And with that said, let's dive right in. Leadership is a potent combination of strategy and character. But if you must be without one, be without the strategy, says General Norman Schwarzkopf, commander of the coalition forces in the Gulf War of 1991. A leader is one who knows the way, goes the way, and shows the way, says John Maxwell. Leadership is key in every level and section of society, and leadership can be a matter of life and death. Okay, now for a quick story. On January 15th, 2009, US Airways Airbus A320-214 Flight 1549 with the call sign Cactus 1549 left New York City's LaGuardia Airport at around 3:25 p.m. About 3 minutes into the flight, the plane struck a flock of Canada geese. The pilot's view was filled with the large birds. Passengers and crew heard very loud bangs and saw flames from the engines, followed by silence and an odor of fuel. Realizing that both engines had shut down, the pilot in command, 57-year-old Chesley B. Sullenberger, a former fighter pilot, took control and resorted to an emergency but safe landing of the plane into the Hudson River. About 6 minutes later, the plane landed or ditched in the Hudson River. The captain calmly opened the cockpit door and gave the evacuation order. The crew guided the passengers out of the plane, and all of them, 155 passengers on board, survived, including one on a wheelchair. None of the passengers sustained serious or major injuries. Later on, when interviewed, they said what kept their sanity during the ordeal was the composure of the captain. The Guild of Air Pilots and Air Navigators awarded the crew a Master's Medal on January 22nd, 2009. This feat is now popularly referred to as the Miracle of the Hudson. Many lives were saved because the captain maintained his composure. A leader must never lose his cool under pressure. The lives of people sometimes depend on him or her. Sir Winston Churchill has been described as Britain's greatest ever leader. He lived a long, heroic life, and he rallied the nation with his inspiring rhetoric. One of the most striking parts of his biography is that he had to resign from the Admiralty during the First World War over the failed Dardanelles campaign. He had failed spectacularly, yet he was to learn not to give up. In a speech he made at his old school, Harrow, the whole school assembled to listen to his words of wisdom. The great man arose to speak, and this is what he said: "Young men, never give up. Never give up. Never give up." The entire speech lasted for a very short time, but no one present ever forgot his words. He also said, "Never give in. Never give in. Never, 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 never. In nothing, great or small, large or petty, never give in, except to convictions of honor and good sense. Never yield to force. Never yield to the apparently overwhelming might of the enemy." John C Maxwell, whose organizations have trained more than 1 million leaders worldwide, points out that leadership is influence. He said that according to sociologists, even the most isolated individual will influence 10,000 other people during his or her lifetime. Amazing. Even by secular standards, Jesus is arguably the most influential leader to have ever lived. He only walked in the public space for 3 years, and in that time gained tens of thousands of followers. 2,000 years later, the best-selling book of all time tells the story of his life, and billions of people from every part of the world have committed their entire lives to following him. Jesus was a servant leader. We need to be servant leaders just like him. In his very nature, Jesus was God, but he did not consider equality with God as something to be grasped, but he made himself nothing, taking the very nature of a servant, and became obedient to death, even the death of a cross, just to serve people. The transcendent creator of the universe came down to the world he had created, not as an emperor requiring subjects to bow before him, but instead as an ordinary guy, looking for those he would humbly serve. Now try to imagine the omniscient, omnipotent, omnipresent God submitting himself to the confines of human flesh. Bill Hybels, in his excellent book, The Power of a Whisper, says, "Can you picture Jesus Christ walking the busy dirt roads of a city in Palestine? Move it or lose it, Jew boy," passers-by might have said, oblivious to who it was they were elbowing out of their way. Bill Hybels goes on to say, "If I ever found myself in the position of equality with God, I'd be hanging on for dear life." And that is true. Even the most mature of us find it hard to let go of the fame and adoration that comes with leadership. I feel you, brother. I totally understand what it means. Do you clutch at position with dear life, or are you happy to let it go to serve others? I once worked with a leader who was totally selfless. His name was Wole Omiyale. He had incredible influence because he had a servant's heart, completely humble to the core. Somebody said, if your actions inspire others to dream more, learn more, do more, and become more, then you are a leader. Leadership is key in every level and section of society. Leaders don't seek followers. They passionately follow their purpose, and followers are naturally attracted to people of purpose and passion. Parents are leaders in the home. Teachers are leaders in school. We need good leadership in the church, the marketplace, the judiciary, the government, the media, arts, and so on. To lead others, you must first learn to lead yourself well. Your organization or family will grow and succeed only to the level of your leadership. Leadership is about serving the people you lead so that they will go further and do better than you. The people who influence us are the people who believe in us. Great leaders all have one thing in common. They know that acquiring and keeping good people is a leader's most important task, writes John Maxwell in his book, Developing the Leaders Around You. He urged his readers, find the best people you can and develop them into the best leaders they can be. As a leader, you must clarify your motives by asking yourself some questions. Is leading people something I want to do because I want to be in charge or boss others around? Or is it innately a part of who I am? We need to lead people as though their lives depend on our leadership, because it actually does. A leader must not be afraid of confrontation and making tough decisions. It is not easy to be a leader, but if you've been called to be a leader in any sphere of life, home, work, church, government, you have to be tough. Wanting everyone to be happy and making tough decisions are incompatible tasks. Good leadership is disappointing people at a rate they can stand. Pour your life into others. Lead from your truest self. Be authentic, and your leadership will be life-giving and energizing. As a leader, you must choose whether you want to impress people or influence them. You can impress from a distance, but you can influence them only when you get close and identify with them. The most essential attribute of a leader is not perfection, but credibility. You build credibility not by pretending to be perfect, but by being honest. As you relate to others as a leader, don't tell your team members they are wrong. Show respect for their opinion. Be diplomatic, but be quick to admit it if you are wrong. Begin with praise and honest appreciation. Call attention to people's mistakes indirectly. Talk about your own mistakes before criticizing those of others. Ask questions instead of giving direct orders. Let the other person save face. Praise the slightest improvement and praise every improvement. Be lavish with praise. Give the other person a reputation to live up to. Use encouragement. Make the fault easy to correct. Make the other person happy about doing the things you suggest. Sometimes there are tricks of the trade that others are willing to pass on to save a little time and energy along the way. But when it comes to leading others, there aren't any shortcuts. As a leader, you have to make tough decisions and stand your ground, whatever the outcome, for the greater good of all. Become the kind of leader that people would follow voluntarily, even if you had no title or position, says Brian Tracy. When it comes to providing leadership to our children, discipline is a vital ingredient in the recipe of parenting. We all need to learn to bend to authority. There are no shortcuts to this, and we must not go with the flow of society. The masses say that discipline of our children will break their spirit, but the wise leader knows this is not the case. Discipline will make your child into the adult you want them to be. It is not always easy to say no to those under our authority, especially if we care about them. But their short-term gratification is not worth the long-term disappointment of a ruined life and a hardened heart. No matter what we teach our children, they insist on behaving just as we do. We teach what we know, but we reproduce what we are and who we are. Your children may sometimes doubt what you say, but they will always believe what you do. Without discipline, you condition your child to a life of heartache. When they're stopped by the police for speeding or penalized by a bank for defaulting on a loan, throwing a tantrum won't get them off the hook. Think about their future. God disciplines his children. Are we wiser than he is? A youngster's heart is filled with foolishness, but physical discipline will drive it away, says Proverbs 22:15. Rebellion is part of a child's DNA, and it is your job to drive it out. As leaders, we must learn to manage pressures, stress, and challenges well. Otherwise, we will be limited. Pressures and stress are all parts of life. There is no such thing as a stress-free life. You cannot get rid of stress. You can only become better at handling it. When you approach stress in the right way, it can motivate you towards your dreams and goals. Another important quality of a good leader is taking action on information that leads to transformation. This means a discipline to start, confrontation, the courage to stop, a person to empower, a system to create, a relationship to initiate, a risk you need to take. Leaders always take the initiative. Take action now. Remember, if you always wait until you're ready, you'll always be late. It has been said that if you want to know if you're a leader, turn around and see if anyone is following. At first take, that makes some sense. Leaders should have followers, but we must understand that sometimes this may not be necessarily true. There might be points in your leadership journey when having followers is not what matters most. A lot of celebrities or politicians have followers, but not all of them are truly leaders. Jesus had a lot of followers when he was providing food and performing miracles, but at the most crucial point in his leadership journey, he lost his followers. All deserted him. The people who have the biggest position usually have the most followers. So whoever holds the most powerful position can easily maintain the larger following, regardless of their actual leadership. Therefore, people seek greater power and position so they can claim greater leadership. The fact is that when we do the things that really matter in this world, we could find ourselves standing alone with no followers. At times, great leadership comes at the price of being in a lonely place. Many chase leadership for greater esteem, larger titles, and bigger paychecks. They miss the point. Leadership is not simply about people following you. Leadership is about the lives you impact, and it's about following God. It's not about who is behind you when you turn around, but it's about who is ahead of you. If God is leading you, inevitably you will touch the lives He has assigned to you. Jesus set the example of leadership throughout His life, all the way to the cross. One of the greatest things about being a leader is that it gives you the opportunity to amplify your impact in the world. It enables you to produce bigger results faster than you could have done on your own. It also allows you to transform the lives of people you lead at the same time. Leadership is an awesome privilege and responsibility not to be taken lightly. Remember, leadership is an action, not a position. Leadership is the capacity to translate vision into reality. Leadership is not about a title, not about a position, not about a designation, or about flowcharts. It's about impact, influence, and inspiration. And that is all for today. Until next time, keep on growing in wisdom and maturity. Blow the cap off your capability. Be unstoppable. Be awesome. I'm cheering you on.